Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. And today is the last Tuesday of the month. And it is also Halloween. So happy Halloween. Of course, some people won't hear it until later in the week, but that's fine.
Happy Halloween to you, Laurie.
My awesome co-host Tom Campbell is with me today. So we're gonna talk about choices. I think it's a good thing to think about. I know that we're coming into the holiday season, and as we move next month to November, we've already had our Halloween. It's very early in the year, or not early, but it's the second Monday of every October. So we had it quite a while ago. It feels like quite a while ago anyway. So choices. We have so many choices. We can talk about the holiday choices. We can talk about just love versus fear choices. We can talk about the fact that some people feel we don't have a choice, and that's a choice too. So let's chat about choices, Tom.
Chat about choices. Okay. I think that most people have no idea of all the choices that they have.
That they make every single moment, yes.
Yes, everything. I'm talking about little choices, everyday choices. Choices of how to respond to somebody's interacting with you and how you respond. You have lots of different choices. We think we don't because we have what we always do, what we're used to doing, kind of the way we are, or in your language, our story. We have our own story, and we live our story. And in our story, we don't have a lot of choices. We just have a story, and we follow that storyline and make the choices that work in that storyline, and realize that we don't realize that story is just a story. We could change the story anytime we want. There's lots of other choices that we have, but if we are having a conversation and somebody says something that we take as a little rude or an affront, we have a choice just to let that go. We have a choice not to be angry, not to get upset, not to give a quip or a little nasty slap back. We have lots of choices. But if our story is a story of nobody treads on me, then what we'll do is we'll get angry and feel obligated to give a little sharp barb back because that's our story. So there's lots of choices we have that we just never even think about. And when we don't think about them, then actually they seem to disappear. And everybody seems to be just going along in their life doing what it is they have to do. And they really don't have to do that at all. Much of what they do, they don't have to do. They just do it because that's the story they're in, right? So they just do it, and often they do it and then complain about it. Why do I always have to wash the dishes? Why do I always have to make the bed? Why do I always have to clean up? Why do I always have to go take out the garbage? Whatever it is. We do things that are in our story, and then we complain about the story. But we never change the story. We just feel sorry for ourselves and just keep on chugging on that same storyline. So talking about choices, I would encourage everybody to realize they have lots of choices that they don't even know they have. You don't have to live that same story. If you'd rather live a story that wasn't full of, anger and unhappiness and sadness and use and abuse and all of that, well, just change your story. Do something about that. Act differently. Now, you can't change other people, so that means you change yourself. I know most people will say, yeah, but myself isn't the problem. It's those other people that are the problem. They're the ones I need to change. Well, that's probably not true. That's also your story, that it's everybody else is the problem. So you can change that story as well and take responsibility for yourself and how you respond to things. And you don't have to take responsibility for what other people say, only for how you respond to that. That's all your choice, how you respond. You can respond with understanding or compassion or caring. If they're upset and say something rude to you, perhaps that means they're having a bad day. You might think about, their bad day and what makes them so snippy, rather than be defensive and get snippy back. So it's just choices, lots of them. And the number of choices that you have is a measure of your decision space. And the decision space grows as you grow. So realizing that you have more choices and then making an effort to always make the best choices is actually a very fundamental part of growing up. So that would be the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to choices, is the choices you make determine whether you evolve or de-evolve the quality of your consciousness. And it's not just those big choices we're talking about, it's all the tiny little choices you make all day long. A cat that just jumped up in your lap. You could have made the choice to say, no, kitty, stay down. Slapped it a couple times, and it probably would have sulked off and gone away and crawled under the sofa, takes a nap. But instead, encourage it, sure, come on up and jump in my lap, because it won't stay for just a little while, because cats don't generally stay too long. They just have a need at the moment, and you can meet that need, and it's okay. You can have that choice. I know when we're doing these videos, and many people who work from home now and do videos, they have bosses and coworkers who demand that the video be, professional. Oh, the dog barks. Oh, that's terrible. You should have put the dog outside, or, I don't know what, tape the dog's mouth shut. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do, but, or a child comes up and says something to you. Unprofessional. You shouldn't allow that. Get your children in line. Well, nonsense. That's in your house. That's where your dog and your children live. And if you're working from there, then they can be a part of it. As long as they don't interrupt your work to the point you can't get your work done. The fact that a child will come in and ask you a question, or a dog will bark, or a cat jumps in your lap, that's part of life. Relax, folks, accept that it's okay. But I've noticed how, there's a lot of criticism about how people aren't professional when they're home. Well, of course, they're not in their three-piece suit at home either, But just having a wider range of acceptability, that things are all right, including people being, sharp or tossing barbs at you. That's okay. It's not that doesn't really bother you. The only thing it bothers is your ego. And if you don't have that ego, it doesn't bother you at all. So that's not something to get upset about or be bothered about. It might even make you smile, particularly if it's a particularly good barb, you might enjoy it as well. So choices. We have them almost every minute of every day. How we do things, how we present ourselves, how we interact with other people. And it's the sum of all those little trivial choices that matter a great deal, that matter whether we grow, whether we evolve, or whether we de-evolve, whether we're happy or whether we're miserable and unhappy and always, struggling with our life. If we're struggling with our life, it's because we're not making good choices. And now it's not because those other people are so mean, it's because you're not making good choices the way you choose to interact with them. So if you're not making good choices, what are you going to do about it? Well, that's the question. What are you going to do about it? Well, if you have an intent that you're going to change that and make better choices, you will. If you just say, oh, well, I can't help it, it's just the way I am, then you won't change anything. So changing, you really have to want to, and want to bad enough to actually do it. And that's basically about all it takes, is a real strong desire to want to change and make better choices.
I think there's a time when, boy, my cats decided that this is the day they want to be on the table because I'm here, I guess. I think there's a time when, something like somebody gets upset, they get upset with you. You don't think you have a choice because you're in a reaction mode and it's kind of automatic. So then I think the choice becomes, do you want to stay in that automatic place? Do you want to stay angry and upset, or do you want to just shift it now? Like, that's when you kind of have a choice. Sometimes it feels almost completely automatic. And then you can, like, I know sometimes I'll just laugh or something and go, okay, yeah, I just caught myself. And then I'll, shift it. But I think a lot of people think, oh no, this terrible thing has happened and we have absolutely no control. And, and they don't think they have control. And I guess that's the story you're talking about. But there's so many people that believe that, there's just no way. I can't not react that way. I can't get angry when somebody gets angry at me, or I can't not get, I think there's a time to be authentic, but if you wallow in something that is painful or fearful or too sad or too angry or too frustrated, then that's when we have another choice, another opportunity to change that, to see that that's what we're doing.
Yes, well, being authentic is a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's really only a good thing if we be authentic with the idea that we're going to look at our authentic self and see, is that good? Is that a good self? Or do I need to change it? And if you just say, well, okay, that's just me, authentic, I'm just a jerk. I push people around. I always are snippy with everybody because, I'm arrogant and I'm just on top of the world and nobody's as good as I am. And that's just me being authentic. Well, okay, if that's you being authentic, then look at that and say, how does that play? What do you get from that? How do people react to you? What is your life like? You have a lot of really good friends? Probably not. Probably don't have any friends at all that are really good. And, you have to look at that. And if it's a problem, then you need to be able to change and see the problem. So authentic, when they say, well, it's great to be authentic. Well, it's only great to be authentic if you're going to learn from that authenticity. If you're going to watch it, see how it interacts, see where it takes you. Does it just take you to more pain and more unhappiness? And you might even say, yeah, well, I argue a lot. I like arguing with people. That's what I do. I put people down and I argue and I enjoy it. So yeah, that's my day. Well, you're probably taking 10 or 20 years off of your life, because when you live like that, you wear yourself out from the inside. You're constantly in the fight mode, and you'll get ill. You'll have, by the time you hit your mid 60s, your health will start to, be terrible. You just, that is not a good way to be. Even if you think you're having fun pushing people around and you enjoy that, that's a really a bad place to be in. And in the long term, that will hurt you. Not only will you de-evolve the quality of your consciousness, you'll de-evolve the quality of your, of your physical system as well. You will be ill, and that is not a good place to be, mentally or physically or spiritually. So if you actually like that, it's probably because that's what you tell yourself. At a deeper level, you don't like it. It's just the way you protect yourself is by fighting and being scrappy all the time. You think that way nobody's going to hurt you because you'll slap first, and you'll intimidate people, and it's your way of protecting yourself because really at a deeper level you're very insecure, and that's how you deal with the insecurity, is to be arrogant. So be authentic, but look at it and say, what is it? How do I interact? And try to do it not from your storyline, but from a kind of an outside observer, if you can manage to do that. So yes, being authentic is wonderful, but it's not an excuse to be rude just because you are authentically rude. So it's okay. No, not okay. The whole be authentic concept is be authentic and then see how that works. How do people respond to the authentic you? And if in general it causes your life problems, then make a new authentic that doesn't have the barbs in it, that doesn't have the poison in it, that doesn't have the insecurity in it. Change that authentic you to something more functionable. So that's the idea of being authentic. But a lot of people do. They don't necessarily say I'm authentic. They just say, well, that's me. That's how I am. My mother was like that, so I'm like that too. And it's like that can't be changed and that can't be helped. It's like God made me this way. And that's an excuse for bad behavior. That's an excuse for laziness, not taking the time to change who you are to be a better person. Mm-hmm. So choices, lots of choices around us all the time. And we're not really aware of it, but the simplest things are our choices. What we eat are our choices. Mm-hmm. Even the friends that we make are our choices. The job we have are our choices. Everything about us is the way it is because of our choices. In fact, we are the sum of all the choices that we've ever made. That's what we are. And if most of those choices have been high entropy, not so good choices, then that's where we are. We're unhappy, struggling. Life is more painful than it is happy. And that's just will be the nature of us if we are if we run out of our fear and our ego and our beliefs, then we're just not going to be very happy people. Mm-hmm. We're going to be struggling, unhappy, miserable people, just getting along to get along, but not really enjoying life much, not having fun, not having a good time. Your life ought to be a good time. You ought to be happy about it and enjoy it. And if you don't, you're doing something wrong. A lot of people have the idea that life is something you slog through. Mm-hmm. You get through it. And that's the best you can do, is just get through all the crap that all those other people throw your way, all the bad circumstances that come your way, and you just slog through it. It's not like that at all. All of that slogging through it is choices that you make, and you don't have to do that. You'd be surprised that when you change yourself, how much your environment seems to change to match. I know I read a funny story about a lady. This was, 20 years ago when Prozac first came out. And she wrote this little story because she was one of the first users of Prozac. And she says it was just amazing how after she had taken Prozac for a month, everybody around her started to act nicer. Says everybody in my life started to act nicer. Everybody was more pleasant and less irritable and having a better time than they were. And somehow her taking Prozac fixed all those people. And of course, that was just tongue in cheek. She was trying to be funny. But it's like that. If you clean up your own stuff, then you'll be amazed at how the environment will shift to meet that. Everybody else will be nicer. They're not nice because you're not nice, and you're not nice because they're not nice, and so on it goes, with all your friends. When you act better, other people will act better too.
Yeah.
So it works really well. You think that, well, if I act better, everybody would, I'd just be the butt of everybody's joke and my life would be even worse. But it doesn't work like that. Your life will get better. People will respect you more. They'll pay more attention to you. They'll listen to what you say more carefully. You won't just be kind of invisible, somebody to use because they're there. You'll matter more. You don't matter. If you don't matter, it's because you're not being in ways that matter. You're just being, argumentative or complaining or woe is me. And people don't care for that. So they don't treat you maybe very well because of that. You're just somebody they have to deal with. You see, so change how you are, and your environment will change as well. At least it'll seem like your environment's changing to you. But in general, it does change. Well, people will treat you better when you treat them better. It's a reciprocal thing. So
we don't all need Prozac.
I just laughed when I read that story because it was so true. It was so absolutely true that when she took her Prozac and suddenly she was less crabby and upset and scrappy and all the things, depressed and so on. When she lightened up, she noticed everybody else lightened up too. It's like, gee, I take this Prozac and it makes everybody act different. Yes, indeed. Magic medicine, the way you take it, and it affects everyone else. Well, good behaviors like that.
Yeah. I don't know why I thought of this story either, but something you said when we were talking about being authentic, but I just remember I was at an event with supposedly a guru, and they were talking about how they just ripped a strip off of somebody that was supposed to be helping them. And instead of them getting upset, it was like, well, clearly this was meant to happen because the guru knows all. And the guru needed to teach you a lesson. And I'm like, wow, how did you get that? Instead of, wow, look at this person. They're actually still human. I was like, what? But people feel the strangest things. It's like, well, that's a choice, I guess.
Well, if you're a guru, then I guess you're allowed to tell other people what's wrong with them and, fix them.
Yeah.
It makes you a fixer of people. Yes.
Somehow
that guru needed some fixing of his own to take care
of. It was
of
her and she was the hugging guru, but whatever.
Well, it's like that. And many people feel that they're very grown up. They're very, they're very spiritual. They're very grown up. They're very evolved. But that's just what they like to believe about themselves.
That's true.
And when they don't act that way, then they have a really good reason why that was actually a good thing too. That person needed that. I've known several people like that. They're acting the role. They're not being the role. They can act friendly and they can act this, but when you act, that's good when you're on stage. But when you're off stage, like, this person maybe was when they ran into whatever set them off. When you're not on stage, then it kind of shows who the real person is. And that's something that I learned early on, that a person can act badly, if a person can be rude, if a person can be snarky and throw darts and do things like that, even if that person seems like a saint other times, that bad behavior shows you who they really are. Because you can't be a saint most of the time and snarky, some of the time. Those two don't go together. You're snarky all the time. It's just that you suppress it and act differently. You're an actor when you're not. It's those negative things that show you the reality, because it doesn't work. The opposite is not true. If you really are grown up, you're snarky none of the time, or you're not really grown up. So, that doesn't work. But if you're snarky some of the time, then you're not grown up. That's just, you may act that way and try to pretend you're that way, but you're really not. All the negative things you do are the truth. So, you're gonna, I always look at the people who come, to do services, like plumbers and carpenters and people who'll take care of your lawn and all that kind of stuff. And if they immediately have to tell you about how they're not going to cheat you and that they're going to work very hard and that they deserve even more than what they get, and go find somebody else. They start telling you how good they are and so on. Right away that this is somebody that's going to try to take advantage of you as soon as they get a chance. Because if you really are a good person, you don't feel any need to talk about it. You're just naturally that way, and you don't see yourself, oh, I'm a good person. That's not how you see yourself. You just see yourself as who you are. So if somebody feels like they need to tell you right up front that they're not going to cheat you, that's because they're going to cheat you, and they're trying to trick you into thinking that they won't. So you have to read between the lines there. People put up good acts, but you just have to watch them for a while, and generally the truth will shine through. And as soon as you see that negativity, you know that the behavior really is an act. But then most people do run, their lives are the care and feeding of their image. They wear the latest styles. They do this, they do that. They do what everybody else is doing. And they care about fitting in, looking and being like everybody else. They live an image because they're insecure, and that feels safe to be like everybody else. But that's not real. It's not authentic, but it's also not sincere. So people like that are very shallow, and if they're that way too long, they won't even know who they are. They really believe that they're the image. They don't know that there's anybody else in there other than this image. And these are the people who tend to get lost and don't know how to find their way back to something more solid, because they've really lost themselves. In living an image, they've gotten to believe that they are that image. But now they're out of touch with things. They don't really connect with people. They don't really have friendships and connections. They have just the ways they act in order to be acceptable and have other people like them. So everything becomes shallow and hollow, and after a while they feel empty. And okay, I got all the stuff, I got friends, I got everything I need, but my life is just so empty, it's meaningless. That's mostly because they're living their image, not actually being authentic, being themselves, and they're not the people that they pretend to be. Yeah, that's a pretty large percentage of people out there kind of fit that description. They live their image. And in our culture, you'll find that appearance is much more important than truth. In most people's lives, you have to appear a certain way, but you don't really have to be that way as long as you appear to be that way. And people work toward appearance. I know that where Pamela worked in the government, they were always telling her about how that it's not just enough that you don't, cheat like on your per diem, when you go on a trip, that you don't add expenses in there that you didn't have. But that's, of course, what, you shouldn't do that. But even more importantly, you shouldn't give the appearance of you doing that. You have to be very careful about the appearance. And as it turns out, they're actually a lot more concerned with the appearance than they are with the facts.
Wow.
As long as the appearance is okay, everything else is fine. Nobody will quibble about anything else, but it has to appear like you're doing the right thing. If you're really padding it a little bit here and there, well, that's okay. Everybody's doing that, but don't let it show. Because if it shows, then, boss will be in trouble, and this person, all that'll get everybody else in trouble. So as long as it's subtle and you can keep it all hidden, nobody really minds that you do that. That's not the problem. So lying, cheating, and stealing is okay as long as you don't get caught. That's kind of the ethic in our culture these days. In fact, people believe that lying, cheating, and stealing, if you don't get caught, is clever. It's you being smarter and cleverer than the other guy. And businesses feel that way. Their corporations feel that way. If they can make more money by lying and cheating and stealing, well, they'll do it, as long as it's legal, and as long as they can, as long as their customers don't realize they're being lied to, cheated, and stolen from. As long as the appearance is there that they're not, and doing it is just being clever. So that's kind of a basic problem we have in our culture, that we feel that way. When I was a child, I was taught that lying is just wrong. It's just wrong. You don't tell a lie. You tell a lie, then people will not be able to believe the things you say. You'll have no credibility. You'll have no. Nobody will pay much attention to anything you say. You have to always be truthful. So that was the way I was taught, but I don't think that's important now. I don't think kids are necessarily taught, don't cheat, don't lie. I think they're taught, don't get caught. And lying and cheating, if you can get by and you make better grades because you cheat, good for you. You put one over on the teachers, and you put one over on the school. It's kind of the old Brer Fox, Brer Rabbit story, right? It's everybody trying to be slicker than everybody else, be a little cleverer, take advantage of other people. But all of that's just wrong. And that's part of the problem in our culture now, is that we don't see things that are wrong as wrong. And that's not a good space to be in. That is de-evolutionary, going backwards. So that worries me a little, that our culture kind of feels that way. That taking advantage of somebody else is clever. Where taking advantage of somebody else is almost always just unethical. Kind of a fundamental principles. That's just unethical. You don't take advantage of people. But if you're a businessman, that's how you make money, is by taking advantage of people. But see, when that's part of our culture and is acceptable, then it encourages a lot of bad behavior and a lot of poor choices. And then people feel unhappy because they don't have much meaning in their life. They feel kind of hollow and empty. And life is just not fun. It's not full of, energy and satisfaction. So the way you deal with it not being full of energy and satisfaction is you take drugs. You drink, you smoke marijuana, you take other kinds of recreational drugs, because that then fills up that empty space of life for something that is pleasant, but not necessarily good, but pleasant. So, yeah, I see a really big tendency for people to self-medicate just to escape the emptiness and the lack of meaning and significance in their life. Because if they take the drug, then they're no longer reminded of the emptiness and the insignificance. Now they just feel mellow and like chuckling and laughing, and everything's okay, and life seems to be good because the reality has been moved a couple of steps away. So that's a problem. So we do that. We do that to allow ourselves to be shallow. Now, what we really ought to do is, instead of taking a drug, we ought to say, why don't I stop being shallow? Stop using people. Stop, stop a life that is not significant. Because any life just honestly lived is significant. When you have to do things like clean up your room, make the bed, and wash the dishes, that's significant. It's significant work that needs to be done, and you're helping people when you do those sorts of things. If you grouse about it and complain because, why do I always do it? Well, just change your perspective and say, oh, this is an opportunity for me to be helpful. Just change the way you look at things. Then suddenly, doing those chores, you feel good about it. Oh, I'm making the house more presentable, cleaner, a nicer place to be. I'm lowering the entropy of my surroundings, and I enjoy that better. And other people who live here don't particularly care so much about that, but that's all right. I'll make their environment a little better anyway, and at least I'll have a little nicer environment. And this work will be part of my joy of making my surroundings more livable. So you have a positive attitude toward it, and it makes your life then meaningful. Now you've got significance. You do things that are significant and meaningful. Other people, not so much. They just drop their stuff wherever they are, and they, don't clean up after themselves, and they this and that. And they live in a life where nothing's significant, nothing's important, nothing's particularly valuable. And that's that empty, hollow space of living an image that, you don't care. You don't really care much about yourself. You don't care about other people. You don't really care much about anything. And you self-medicate by taking drugs to get rid of the emptiness and the hollow feeling. A lot of people, unfortunately, fit into that. But even if your environment is like that, you don't have to be that way. You can just change your attitude, and you can do things that are meaningful, that are significant, and helpful to those people. Well, you can't change them, but you can change yourself. And maybe you are the only one picking things up and washing the dishes or whatever, but you can feel good about that. You're doing something useful instead of feeling bad about that. I'm being abused. Poor me. I'm the one that has to do all of this. And when you start feeling that way, now you're a victim. Oh no, now you hit the bottom of the barrel. You're some victim, and that goes no place. But if you just look at it positively, other people can be how they are, but I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be helpful. I'm going to do things that make me and everybody else's life a little better. And if people appreciate it, I'll feel good. And if they don't appreciate it, I'll still feel good because I'll appreciate it. See? And take a positive view toward that, not a negative. Then you will feel that you're doing the same things you always did, but now you're happy. Now your life has value, it has meaning, it has significance. You see, and you don't need to self-medicate. Life is good. So you don't have to change your environment. All you have to change is your perspective, the way you look at things. That's the key. Just look at things from a different perspective, and you can find significance and value and meaning almost everywhere, even in the most trivial things. So that's kind of the key. And now you're being authentic, and you're not living an image, you're living a real life, and your life matters because you're the only one that's cleaning things up and, getting the dishes clean and, maybe making the food or whatever it is you do, going to work, bringing home the salary. You're the only one that's really caring. Well, that's unfortunate that these other people feeling so empty and hollow, but you're not. You're feeling good, because you're contributing. And you don't have to change them. You just change yourself. So now here you are growing. You're taking steps forwards. Your quality of consciousness is getting better and better. And what will happen? Eventually, the other people around you will maybe start to change because you're giving them an example. They look at you and they start feeling a little bad about themselves, and maybe they'll try a little harder. You see, so you start to be an upward pull on your environment, and you'll start to meet people more like you, other positive people, and you'll make friends with them, and they'll be good friends. And who knows, maybe you'll move out of that situation altogether and live with a nicer bunch of people. But, your whole world opens up now to a different situations and different ways of living. And you probably, you may find that situation that, I see a much better place to be, and I don't really need to be here anymore. And you can move, be someplace else. And eventually, 20, 30 years later, you find yourself in a really nice place, surrounded by really nice people, and everybody's kind of happy and good and helping each other, and it's great. That's where you'll end up. But that may take 20 years to get there. But that's all right, because that's the kind of person you are, and that's what you'll attract. So it does work out. It's just you have to look at the long view. Not that, I tried this for a week and it doesn't work, All I get is more abuse. Well, yeah, maybe so. Well, work harder. That's okay. Work harder. Be cheerful. Feel good about the services that you're providing. And if you outgrow that situation to where you've learned all you can from it, move on to a better situation. When you've learned everything you can from that situation and you've grown as much as you can grow from it, move on to a better situation. But you can't move on unless you can make yourself better. Otherwise, moving on without making yourself better, you're just going to get the same situation over and over and over again. You're not going to grow and evolve out of that kind of dysfunctional space. But you start with changing yourself. So it's choices. Mm-hmm. See, it's all about choices. It's a choice. How do you see things? How do you interpret the world? How do you interpret if your choices are full of blaming other people, you're not happy because other people are all slobs and they won't do their fair share and you have to do everything and woe is you, then you're going to be an unhappy person living in an unhappy life, and you'll see no way of escape. Whereas the escape is just inside your head. All you have to do is think about it differently. Think about, what can I give? All right, I see lots of places to give around here. There's lots of people who would like to take. Well, I'll give. And you live that life and you grow and you become a higher quality person. Then you move up to a better situation because you will have earned moving up to a better situation. Whereas you just keep on keeping on, you haven't earned up to getting a better situation. You haven't leveled up in the game. So you're going to get the same situation over and over again until you do level up. So that's basically the way the game works. And it's such a simple idea, particularly if you've ever played video games, because that's the way the video games work. You're stuck in a certain strata of activity until you can level up. Well, in this game, Leveling up means caring, sharing, cooperating, helping, being positive, having a good attitude, smiling a lot, seeing what you're doing as something that needs to be done. And you're doing it. And it's helpful to people. Whether they appreciate it or not isn't that important to your own growth. It's only important to your own ego. You want to be appreciated. Well, that's your ego talking. Do it because it's just right. It's helpful. It's a good thing to do. And you'll level up. And when you level up, you get a whole new strata of interactions. And you'll level up from that. That's how you grow up in the world. You won't stay stuck in that first situation forever, just until you grow up enough that you do really level up. You're a different person. That'll attract a whole new life for yourself. You'll connect with other people just because you're the pleasant person who helps all sorts of people. They'll want to be around you. And some of them will be a lot nicer people. And life will just take care of itself. You don't have to make it happen. It just happens. So that's the game. Come love, help, cooperate, care, and your life will just get better and better. But if you don't, if you need immediate satisfaction, then you won't get that. It's like, well, I've been nice all day. Now, where's my better life? That won't work. That's you acting nice to get something. That's not you being nice. All right, yeah, I've acted nice for a whole week. Where's my ticket up? And we're not about acting nice. It's about being nice, changing your whole perspective of who you are and why you do what you do. That's important. If you're just acting, it won't work. Acting won't get you very far. Because eventually all those people that would help you move up to the next level, they'll be aware that you're just acting. It'll show. People are not as good actors as they think. You're not really fooling a whole lot of people. You communicate mind to mind a whole lot with people. People know what's going on. People know if you're acting. Sure, what do they say? Fool some of the people some of the time. But you won't fool all the people all the time. And you really won't fool very many people ever. Everybody else is perfectly aware of bad behavior in other people. They're just not aware of bad behavior in themselves. But they can see that other people are acting and other people are not really, being nice. They're just trying to act that way for some reason. They must want something, If they're acting nice, it's because they want something. So anyway, yeah, you got to really be it. And you may have to be it for years, but you'll see, it'll work. Being it for years means you really are being it because you can't act that long. That's what really separates the being from acting. You can act for a day, you can act for a week. You might even act for a month, but eventually the acting just runs out. You can't do that but for so long. Your real self shows. So you really have to fix it at the being level. And if you level up because you've had a good attitude for a couple of years, you will level up. It's not like, yeah, I'm trapped here forever. No, you're not. You'll be a different person. You'll think differently. You'll feel differently. You'll connect with different people. Different people will connect with you. And your life will change. All you have to do is, move up to the next level. That's the way it works. So choices. It's all about, what do you want? What do you choose to be? Well, I choose to get even when somebody does something I don't like. I get even. I don't get mad. I get even. I see that on T-shirts, where people are proud of that. Whereas it actually shows a very dysfunctional attitude. People kind of a little attitude shift that they're feeling kind of beaten down and stuck. They're not stuck. They're just stuck because they think they're stuck. They don't see the way out. The way out is to grow up, is to be different. And they think, oh, I don't want to be different because everybody will use me. Well, maybe. You got to be different anyway. It's not so bad being used. You get to help people. Being used isn't an awful thing. Being used and being useful kind of go together. You're useful. So it's like, nobody uses me. Well, that's just big ego and arrogance talking. But our culture kind of thinks that way. So we tend to think that way too. Well, I hope people get something out of it. I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it, Laurie? You and I coming here and talking, that some people will listen to us and say, "Oh, I get that. I'm gonna try to do that or be that." Yeah, that's the point.
Yes, that is the point. All right. You've been listening to News of the Heart. We've been getting to the heart of what matters with Tom Campbell and choices. Choices. All right. We will be back next month. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Laurie.